All right, Madam Chair, it's 5:15. We have a quorum. So tonight's work session, we have Michael Garner from our code compliance team here. And he's going to give an introduction to code compliance and what they do. So with that,
Excellent.
I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening almost, really. My name is Michael Garner. I'm a code compliance officer with the city of Boise, and I've been doing this for about 25, 26 years, something like that. With me are two of my supervisors, Martin Bautista and Tyler Johnson. They're here just to make sure I don't pass out or completely screw things up. So
You're going to be fine.
got the slides? Okay, next. Oh, I got the clicker, don't I? I have some. It's not working like you said. I am pushing the right button. Got it? Okay. The code enforcement team, code compliance team, you'll forgive me if I go interchangeably between both. I've been saying both so long now. I do this. So there are 7 of us that are active compliance officers out in the city right now for the entire city. And we have our regions split up. We handle mostly licensing and permitting and general code compliance. We can do parking compliance. We probably could do animal compliance, but we do not. We don't actually do much in the realm of parking compliance. Our bread and butter literally is Title 11 and all the other miscellaneous titles that come with it, with licensing, et cetera. We handle all the following violations that you see before you now. And those words don't begin to encompass how much that is. The stuff we do for public works, parks and fire, the city doesn't have a comprehensive rule that says code compliance can enforce all ordinances with the city. So at this time, we work it out with them through memorandums of understanding, or in this case, with the new zoning ordinance, we've been able to write it in such a way, especially with the amendments coming up, that we'll be able to enforce more of the nuisance codes throughout the entire ordinance package that the city has. With licensing and permit enforcement, we handle all those titles right there, but the yellow ones will show you just how we focus our time, really. Child care facilities is a good one. There are 423 child care facilities throughout the city, which means we end up doing 846 inspections a year just on child care facilities. And that's not including the health and welfare or other complaints we get from private citizens saying, hey, my Susie was bitten and we're calling you folks about it. But we also deal quite a bit with the parking, short-term rentals, off and on, you know how that goes. And sidewalk cafes are immeasurably painful for the officer that has to handle that one downtown. It's a constant fight. We don't do so much with taxis and limos anymore, but it's still painful to do because they're difficult. Our authority, is vested into the state, but we can write citations. They're misdemeanor citations. We don't do much with infractions, really. Mostly 99.9% of what we do is a misdemeanor citation, which for us means that if you make it to court, there is a potential of $1,000 fine, 6 months in jail, and the probability of you having to report to the court that you're still doing well. We don't have too many of those. The number of citations we write are increasing every year. That has to do with population and actually better ordinances, frankly. We can also abate nuisances, and that one's tough, and I'll explain a little bit more about it. But what it means is this, is if there is on a property a mess, whether it be all kinds of garbage, pallets, all kinds of stuff like that, we can remove it, or we can just cut down the overgrown grasses and weeds. We can abate it. And in that sense, we have some ability to go on people's properties, but bear in mind, it's only during that time that we can walk on their properties more or less freely. Otherwise, we have the same rules that police or postmen have. We can walk to the front door. I can't wander into your backyard. I can't go into a seemingly abandoned home just to make sure that everything's okay. I have to follow those same rules. Generally speaking, we will give them a notice of violation. It gives them 10 days to resolve the problem, whatever that problem is. And then we'll work with folks. We do so all the time. And we understand that cases are just not simple sometimes. They're not black and white, nor are the people that we deal with ever. And every property has its own DNA. The ordinances are written with a perfect idea that every property is exactly square. It doesn't work out that way. It gets complicated. And since there's some 100,000 plus properties, parcels in the city of Boise, and some, I don't know, 100,000 people 18 and over that can turn in complaints for 7 officers, potentially it's a lot. We handle right now somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 cases a year on average, and that number is going up as well. When we talk about abatement, though, we do have one little hitch in our giddy up. We call it the Roll decision. In 1997, we abated a property and we lost at the Supreme Court because we took a toilet seat that the property owner successfully argued had value on the open marketplace. I'm assuming Craigslist. We lost. And for a while, we were not abating properties at all. The city said, you won't do it. Now we do fairly regularly, but we have rules that we follow and pretty much won't take anything of value. And so a property like this, you may not be able to see the picture very well, but I promise you, if you look a little bit closer, you'll see skis and bikes and all manner of, I don't think we can abate that property. So we're limited to a citation. Citations can be difficult too. We can write them. It takes 45 to 90 days to get in front of a court. Prosecutors always have prosecutorial choice on whether or not they'll follow through with that case. So ones like this can be problematic. We have also officer discretion. So on the right-hand side, you can see a pretty big mess. We don't have any discretion there. We will get it cleaned up. On the left side, we have more discretion. It depends on where it can be seen from. Can it be seen from the street? It has to be seen from the public right of way. And we also have to determine how big that mess really is and how easy it is to clean it up. Officers can go to a point of substantial compliance, but we have to talk with our supervisors about that and kind of determine where that is and how much we can push folks. And do they have the means? Do they have the wherewithal? Age, infirmity, all manner of things come into play there. Our biggest thing this year, we had more weed cases than we've had in 20 plus years. At one point, I had 200 open cases on just weeds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I traveled the entire city doing it. That's a lot of properties, and we were abating them. And folks get confused about what is actually a violation and what is not. So for us, we use this picture to show exactly what it takes to get there. On the other hand, we get a property like this where, I hate to use the word ugly, but we don't regulate ugly. We simply don't. And we get a lot of complaints every year about this. I can't make the mow if it's not over 12 inches. If it does, in other words, if it's not a fire hazard. And this plays into the fire code, which is where we work with them pretty closely. If they change their code, we have to change our standards as well. In a property like this, yeah, there's a lot of violations, but it also brings up the idea of an attractive nuisance, which we get after. Right now, the current code doesn't have it. They forgot about it when they approved it. We're bringing it back, hopefully. The idea is it's a common law term, which means that if a home like that that's open for anybody to enter, and if it's near an area where kids, mostly minors, but in this case, this day, it could be an indigent population can enter it as well, and that becomes dangerous for us. And so we try to get those boarded up as quickly as we can. For the zoning code, and more to the point of where you folks are, not just in the north end, of course, not just in the historical areas, but anytime we deal with a building code violation, we have an agreement with them. So none of us are building inspectors. We don't have those certifications, but we can tell by visual inspection whether or not somebody's built, altered, or demolished a property they don't have a permit for whatever they're doing on the property. We can address it. The building inspectors might come to us. They're the subject matter experts. So if we get to the point where we write the citation, we write it and they sign as the witness and the subject matter expert. And if it goes to court, that's who will generally be brought up to do witness statement of any kind. And of course, any kind of improvements within the historic districts without approval. I'll go back in time and say that during my first couple of weeks here, Canyon County didn't have this issue at all. Not at all. So my first week here, I get a call from the historical preservation planner who was screaming on the phone that I needed to get to Warm Springs. They were cutting a tree down. I thought he was joking. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. Of course, I rushed there and I was calling people, right? What should I do? What am I going to do here? It happens. So one of the reasons I'm here is just talk about conditions of approval. We enforce conditions of approval. Okay. But bear in mind, we don't enforce conditions of approval very often until it's years down the road. That's the majority of our cases. So when we have to read a condition of approval, it has to be very clear, because you understand that when I write a citation, I have to write a probable cause statement and I have to be able to defend it all the way through. So when we look at it, we're going to look at exactly those elements right there. When is the condition to be enacted or fulfilled? So the timing, when you write those conditions, we'll look at it. If you say that there's a violation, but it was within the timing, I don't know. What are the specific requirements? And again, the focus is on specific requirements, because we read these things black and white. We don't have a history that you do from testimony or just knowing this property inside and out. And then how are the requirements to be satisfied? So when you tell someone that here's this condition, you have to meet it. You also have to add the how, because I'm looking at it again down the road. How are they supposed to enforce this? And we'll talk a little bit later about that when we look at some of the issues regarding the conditions. And then who. Conditions really, we got to focus on the obligations and not identifying a person to be responsible for it. And the reason is, I'll use a good example, is that a hotel on Vista, maybe 5 years ago, I got a case. They got a landscaper in there and they cut the trees almost to the point that you couldn't tell they were trees anymore. But the condition of approval said X Smith was responsible for making that happen. I couldn't enforce that condition because it listed a person and not the company or not the land that it stayed with. So the conditions go with the land, not a person. And this something you probably know, but I'm going to tell you right now, we can't enforce it if you forget it in that 1 second. We look at timing for us. So we're looking at general conditions before the issuance of construction permits, before the building work commences. So we sometimes get these conditions. A planner will call us and say, or someone who's been paying very close attention to a property will say to us, hey, they're not following the conditions. We will look at the timing of that. And that's what I mean by that. They have to be easy for us to enforce and easily understood. They have to be within the statutory power to be imposed. So it has to be within the ordinance. We can only enforce what's in the ordinance. That's the limitations of what we can do. Very specific and clear language, because I can't read your minds, nor can the citizens that often call us and say they're doing this and they have a misunderstanding of it. I would say that I've heard 25,000 times that testimony all of a sudden becomes what was supposed to happen on that property. And by God, I better get my tuchus out there and take care of this issue. So we have to be very clear about it. And then a clear and enforceable outcome. So if they don't do this, this will happen. You have to do this at this time or this will happen. It has to be very clear. Specific criteria of must or will versus should or may. The moment that it's loose like that, we can't, my probable cause statement went out the door. Noise ordinance. Right now, if you put a noise condition on a property, we can't enforce it. There's no ordinance that we can enforce. There is for the police, but it's limited to cars that are too loud, parties. If you put something like you can't have noise before 6 a.m, or it has to be at a decibel level, we're not trained for, nor do we have decimeters available to us. And yeah, we won't be able to do anything with it. So everyone gets disappointed at that point. This next one, again, ambiguous standards, maintain construction activities during normal working hours. For whom? Whose normal working hours? We have to be very clear. So it has to be between this time and that time. Otherwise, I will lose in court on that one. During construction, all trash and debris must remain on the property. It can still spread. So what you have now is, and a good example is on the east end of town, when they were building so many properties all close together, many folks complained that there was trash all over the property, but that very condition was on there. Instead of saying it should be in a dumpster, it should be in some kind of enclosure. It was on the property. I couldn't enforce anything just because it was littered all over the place. And of course, they were really mad with me. I can take it, but it didn't work out well for the citizens. So lack of a specific timeline for when conditions must be satisfied. We look at the phase of the project, the department, or expert review, and then a final sign off. Those are the three ways that we're kind of determining when those timelines sort of, or when those conditions have to meet. Sometimes they don't. But if you put that in there, that it has to be that particular expert, or that has to meet that timeline, and if it's outside of it, it makes it difficult for us to enforce. And then lastly, not overly legalistic or complex. Most of us have a master's degree. You know, we're not dumb people, but we're also not attorneys, and we don't have attorneys in our hip pocket when we're trying to read these things. So we have to be very careful. And mostly it's for the citizens. They call us, they have a lot of questions. I may not be able to answer it unless it's very clear for what we're doing. Just to recap, we enforce a wide array of the city codes, and we investigate properties and projects or either by complaint, and that's the only way we go anymore. We are not a proactive organization. Just based on numbers, we require that a complaint be turned in. And so when it is, we're very active with the citizens themselves, and they have a lot of questions. We want to give them the right answers, and we want to enforce it the right way in a timely manner. Of course, they deserve that. So we rely on you folks to give us these clear and concise ordinances and conditions of approval for everything we do. That ends all I have to say. I'm now open to questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks for your presentation. Really appreciate
Yes.
it. Can you, how much outreach do you have either to or from various neighborhood associations?
We consistently work and reach out to the neighborhood associations and try every year, every spring. And the good example is that I will be giving a presentation for a number of foothills organizations regarding the weeds in the foothills and which properties we can reach out to ahead of time to say, just as a reminder, we're there every year. You guys receive notices. If you start cutting now, we won't have this problem. So it's a hit and miss. Sometimes the neighborhood organizations really want us there. Sometimes they're like, nah, we don't need you. We understand what's going on. So we make the extended hand, and sometimes successful. And we give these same kind of presentations to varying degrees. You want an exact number? It changes year to year, honestly. We have more luck with, it sounds strange, but with HOAs, the neighborhood organizations. Oddly enough, we tell them all the time, we don't enforce your rules. We cannot, but you can help us enforce ours. And that's how we get success there.
I have a question too about this is something that comes up in my neighborhood. I live up on Morris Hill on the bench, and
Yes, sir.
we have seem to have an increasing number of abandoned houses.
Yes.
And so like we can call on and I'm asking as a citizen, not as necessarily a member of the commission, but I
Yeah.
get asked this a lot. So this is my opportunity that this is here. What if the grass is cut? I mean, what if we have a house with busted out windows and abandoned? Is that a code enforcement thing, or does the city have mechanisms to make people?
Boy, it is
make those safe?
I'm going to have to give you a complicated answer, but tell you yes and no is the simplest way I know how to put that. We can look at a property, and hopefully with the new zoning ordinances, we amend it, we'll be able to address what we would call an attractive nuisance like that. There are other portions of the code that we can use in some instances if the building is physically shaky, I can bring the building department over to look at it and say, hey, is this structurally sound? So I have ways to do it. But directly through the zoning ordinance, it's not a straight line right now. Yeah.
Any other questions? That was really informative. I
You
feel
bet.
like I learned a lot that I hadn't thought about before, and I especially appreciate the must will language versus the should and may, because I feel like we all want to be nice, but like making it clear, I feel like is important, especially for this group.
Yes.
we should have one session that's just you telling stories of crazy code enforcement
I thought the same thing. I wanted to be like, what's your craziest story?
I'm not going to say with them, man. We all have them.
Off the record. We'll
Off the
talk.
record
Yes,
sometime, yes.
yes.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I really
you so much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. So just to run through the agenda real quick, and then we'll give you a little bit of a break here until 6 o'clock. There is a change to the hearing notes that were sent out. So item number 1, DRH 24-342 on East Jefferson Street. We're going to recommend deferral of that. We had a late request from the applicant to use a deferral to work with the East End Neighborhood Association on a redesign. We feel like that's appropriate. So we would recommend deferral of item number 1 until to next month's hearing, which I don't have in front of me, but we can find it.
Okay, I can look it up.
While Richard gets that pulled up. Item number 2, our recommendation from the packet remains the same. That's 24-00263 on Ada Street. We would recommend deferral of that one also. And I guess that's
February 24th.
February 24th. Yes. So items 1 and 2 to February 24th, please.
Okay.
Item number 3, DRH 24-423 on 1302 North 12th Street. We would recommend that one for the consent agenda.
Did anybody have questions about that one that we could answer right now? Pause it for just a second while Jeff looks it up. Nope, we're good.
No?
All right,
Okay.
so it sounds
All
like
right.
we can recommend that for consent.
Item number 4, DRH 24-437 on North 24th Street. We do anticipate hearing that item.
Okay.
And item number 5, DRH 24-00442 on North 10th. We will hear that one as well.
Excellent.
And with that, without any other questions, we'll see you here in 20 minutes.
Great, thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, we can go ahead and get started.
Excellent.
Good evening and welcome to the Boise City Historic Preservation Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. There's a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then those who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually or in person. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. And with that, Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by city council. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. So that's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that the applicant agrees to the staff report and there is no public opposition. The item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, then public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Maroney,
Here.
Montoto, Malloy, Otter. Here. Parks,
Here.
Owens. Here. Sales,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
6 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. And the first thing that I need a motion for is for the minutes for December 30th. Are there any modifications or comments or a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the Historic Preservation Commission work session and meeting minutes from December 30th, 2024.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Maroney,
Abstain?
Otter,
Abstain.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens. Aye. Sales,
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
4 in favor, 2 abstain, motion carries.
Thank you. And we have one item for the consent agenda tonight is DRH 24-00423. It's at 1302 North 12th Street. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Are you in agreement with all the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone present today to testify in opposition of this project? None? All right. I see no hands. So we can move this. I need a motion to move this to the consent agenda, please.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Owen.
I would like to make a motion to move DRH 24-00423 onto the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Otter. Clerk, can you please call the roll on that?
Maroney,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens.
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And we have 2 requests for deferral tonight. The first one is item number 1, DRH 24-00342. It is at 917 East Jefferson Street, a certificate of appropriateness to alter the character defining facade of a contributing structure. Is there anyone present wanting to testify who could not return on February 24th, which our next meeting will be? No? Anyone online? No? Okay. So we will, I'm just going to let us do a motion for both of these when we'll just talk about both of them and then move them and then defer both of them at the same time. The next one is DRH 24-00263 at 718 West Ada Street, certificate of appropriateness to construct a new single-family residence with a detached garage and accessory dwelling unit on a property in a residential tradition zone. Is there anyone here wanting to testify that could not return on February 24th for this project? No? Anyone online? All right, if we can have a motion to move both of those, to defer both of those until the February 24th meeting.
Madam Chair, I move to defer DRH 24-00342 and DRH 24-00263 to the February 24th, 2025 Commission meeting.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second.
Thank you. Clerk, can you please call the roll on that?
Maroney,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. So with that, we will start with agenda item number 4. It's DRH 24-00437, 1209 North 24th Street, a certificate of appropriateness to construct a rear addition and a detached garage with accessory dwelling unit above on a property in a residential traditional zone with a historic design overlay. Can we please hear the presentation?
Only 2 words that time, or 3. This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located on the west side of 24th Street between, oh, sorry. Third take. This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located on the west side of 24th Street between Brumbaugh and Reidenbaugh Street. Here are the existing site plan showing the addition to be removed and the proposed site plan showing the proposed addition and a garage with an accessory dwelling unit above it. Here's the existing plan of the reference where you can see in the basement and the first floor that rear addition in greater detail. Here's a proposed floor plan of the residence showing the proposed addition in greater detail as well. Here's the proposed the floor plans for the proposed garage and accessory dwelling unit to the rear of the property detached. These are elevations of the residence showing the proposed addition. And elevations of a proposed garage and accessory dwelling unit. This is a site plan showing how the garage and accessory dwelling unit will be perceived from the street, showing a sight line from head height. And where that cross gable would block the view. Here are photographs outlining the location of the rear addition to be removed in red. These are photographs of the existing residence and carport. Here are photographs of the houses in the vicinity to give context. And finally, photographs of the alley with a tall garage and accessory dwelling unit to the south in the bottom right photograph. This applicant is proposing to remove a fixed glass window to the left of the entrance on the primary facade of this contributing structure and replacing it with a double hung window, which are the types elsewhere on the primary facade and is an appropriate type for this style. The applicant has also proposed removal of the recent furring and capitals from the front porch post, which makes them wider than the original post. Staff has analyzed the original photograph on file through the historic inventory form and determined that this has indeed occurred and finds the removal of this to expose the historic unembellished square post to be appropriate. Staff has added conditions to ensure that this is accomplished correctly. The applicant proposes to construct an accessory dwelling unit and garage above. The form and materials are differentiated from primary residence. The accessory structure is 4 feet 3 inches taller than the residence. However, this lot is 180 feet long, nearly 60 feet longer than most north end lots. That makes this structure very difficult to see from the street due to the perspective. As shown, a sightline study drawing has been included in this application. The existing house will block the view as it is seen or encroaches. This will block the view because it is the property is set to or encroaches historically built when it could encroach because there weren't side setbacks on the side yard setbacks. The property to the south has a garage ADU, which is 2 to 3 feet taller than the proposed structure. The proposed structure is over 1,000 square feet and under 22 feet in height, and therefore complies to the full setback requirements of the zone with no reduction due to being over 1,000 square feet. Based on the above analysis, staff recommends approval, and I will stand for questions from the commission.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? No? All right, hearing none, we'll now hear from the applicant. Name and address, please.
My name's Amy Allgaier. I live at 1402 North 22nd Street, and I'm the architect for this project. Richard ran through everything pretty clearly. If I don't have a formal presentation, but I'm happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right, we do not have any, thank you. Is there anyone representing the neighborhood association?
Sandra Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. We agree with staff. We don't have concerns regarding this project. The lot is very deep, so even though the ADU is taller than the house, we feel it will not be noticeable from the street. This is another good example of adding density to the neighborhood with minimal impact. Nina would like to remind homeowners, contractors that materials listed within the accepted plan are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed as they are part of standards in the historic neighborhood. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding worksite requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and worksite neatness help keep our neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of the construction process.
Thank you. Any questions for the neighborhood association? None? All right. I do not have the sign-up sheet. Do we know if anybody signed up? Sorry. Thank you. All right, we do not have anybody signed up on our sign-up sheet. Is there anybody present wishing to testify either in opposition or support of this project? Anybody online? No? All right, you have time for rebuttal if there's any final thoughts you have. No? All right, any questions for any parties before we close the public hearing? Okay, with that, we can render a decision. Does anybody have discussion or a motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Owens.
I move to approve DRH 24-00437.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Clerk, can you please call the roll on that?
Maroney,
Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks,
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we have DRH 4-00442. It's at 1307 North 10th Street. Certificate of appropriateness to demolish an existing structure and construct a new single-family residence on property in an R1C HDO, which is a residential traditional with historic overlay zone. Staff, can we please get the report?
This is the aerial map indicating where the property is located on the west side of 10th Street between Rescue, I'm trying my best, and Ada Streets. Here's the site plan showing the existing accessory structures and an aerial image overlaid with the footprint of the house to be constructed. Here is the basement floor plan of the proposed residence. The first floor plan. Second floor plan. And elevations of the proposed residence. This is a drawing showing the height of the existing and proposed residence being the same, as well as shorter adjacent residents and most notably the taller ones in the immediate vicinity. Here are photographs along the alley and from the alley looking towards the rear of the property. Another view towards the rear of the property looking to the south and north from the sidewalk. Here's the front elevation of the residence to be removed and a view of the rear yard, rear fence area. And finally, here are panoramic images of the houses around the property, as well as photographs of the nearby residences at 1301 and 1320 North 10th Street. Please note that the upper left blue residence is a full two-story structure that is at 1302 North 10th Street, which is diagonal to the subject property. And finally, here are representative photos of a similarly designed modern or contemporary construction nearby in the north end. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing non-contributing structure and construct a new residence that will be the same height as the one being demolished. It will be taller than neighbors nearby, the neighbors by 4 feet to the left and approximately 5 feet forward to the right. However, staff feels that this height difference is allowable as it is replacing the existing house of the same height. Also, the residence at 1302 North 10th Street, as stated before, which is diagonally across the street, is approximately 37 feet 4 inches and is a full two-story structure with an attic and roof above. Therefore, the proposed two-story structure with wide side dormers, which reduce the overall height, versus a full two-story with an attic and roof above, is appropriate in the context of the residences in the near vicinity. The height to the roof peak is 25 feet 4 inches, and the widths will keep it within the side yard setbacks as required by code. It will sit on the parcel with similar and front side setbacks of the existing house. Therefore, this residence will be similar in height and width to buildings on the adjacent sites and the block. The mass and form are compatible to residences in the vicinity and features a front porch. Materials and window openings and window types are all appropriate. The lot coverage does not exceed the guidelines 35%, and materials to be used are conditioned to ensure they meet our guidelines. Based on the above analysis, staff recommends approval, and staff will stand for questions from the commission.
Thank you. Do we have questions for staff?
Just, Madam Chair, just one confirming question. This is a non-contributing.
Correct. The city of Boise's, the one in the packet, the city of the Boise's form listed as non-contributing.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Owens?
could you reiterate for me, what's the lot coverage on this one?
I didn't put I don't have my packet. I usually add my packets to my file, but I don't have that handy, and it's not here.
Okay.
Under 35.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, yes, there we go. The applicants can speak to that.
Excellent. Any other questions for staff? None? All right, thank you. So now we'll hear from the applicant. If you want to step forward and state your name and address, please.
My name is Kevin Vincent. I'm the applicant, and I'm at 2570 South Ormond Street, Boise, Idaho, 83705. For this project at 1307 North 10th Street, the homeowners have planned to demo and replace this home because of subpar construction, and remodeling this home would be too cost effective. It's been remodeled in the past. It's second floor sitting on 2x4s. Kids live above. So really in the basement, we basically have to lift this whole house up, put a new basement in, rip the whole second floor off, put a whole new second floor in it to really make this house livable per se. So our avenue of approach is rebuild on this. The homeowners plan to replace this home with a single family residential home with a basement, first and second floor. The homeowners have designed this home themselves with extensive consideration from the city, NENA, and surrounding homeowners. 1307 North 10th Street is in the historic district, but is not contributing. And we plan to replace this home with a home that fits the community, but does not try and fake a historic look. The new proposed home will be in approximately the same footprint as the old, with a total lot coverage of 31.3%. This includes leaving the existing garage and ADU in the back. So those two structures we saw on our site plan. The main roof line of this home is not intended to be a dormer, and the front and back lowered roof lines are intended to add design elements to the home so it fits in with the neighborhood to kind of keep with that height. The new home is designed at the same height as the existing, and many of the surrounding homes are much taller than our new home design. Example of this is 1302 North 10th, which you saw up there in the blue. That if we look a little closer, if you want that panorama, will show our house as well as theirs. Those property lines do touch if you were to take the street away. And that house is approximately 37 feet 4 tall. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? No? All right, thank you. It's the Neighborhood Association present.
Sandy Herman, 1404 North 7th Street. We agree with staff. It's disappointing that the original existing house was compromised. The applicant has done a good job of replacing the existing house with a plan that has a similar footprint and height. The lot coverage is fine as well. Nina would like to remind homeowners and contractors that materials listed within the accepted plans are part of an agreed upon contract with the city. It is important to adhere to the materials as listed as they are part of standards in a historic district. Changing materials without consulting the city could result in fines, delays, and mitigation at the contractor or homeowner's expense. We further want to remind homeowners to adhere to all regulations regarding worksite requirements put forth by the city. Rules about work hours, noise, parking, and worksite neatness help keep the neighborhood neighborly. We recommend homeowners communicate with neighbors before particularly disruptive parts of their construction process.
Thank you, Sandy. Are there any questions for the Neighborhood Association? None? All right. I do not have anybody on my sign-up sheet, but is there anybody present that's wishing to testify either in favor or opposition of this project? Or anybody online? No? All right, you have time for a rebuttal if there's anything else you want to say. Okay, any questions for us before we close the public hearing? Okay, perfect. So with that, we'll close the hearing and render a decision. Do I have a motion or does somebody want to start with some discussion?
I have one question, Madam Chair.
Yep.
I want to clarify. So even though it's a non-contributing house, it's in the historic overlay, it's still
Correct.
required to use the materials approved through okay.
Correct. Yep.
So then, do you know what those materials are yet? Have you proposed what they are for siding and such?
Yeah, so we've added those, I believe the elevation plan,
Madam Chair.
have those listed out.
Can you come up to the microphone just so we can hear
Sorry, I
you?
asked you out of order.
Sorry,
but-
and you have to say your name and
Yep.
address again.
My name's Kevin Vincent, applicant, 2570 South Ormond Street. We did list those, and that is on the elevation views on the outside. It shows each material call out there, which we have shown to be acceptable.
Perfect.
for this
Thank you.
work. Do you want me to stay up here?
You're good.
Cool.
Thank you. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Owens.
I would like to make a motion to approve DRH 24-00442.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Thank you. Clerk, can you please call roll on that? Aye.
Otter,
Aye.
Parks.
Aye.
Owens,
Aye.
Sales,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And that is all we have on our agenda tonight.